Hello, my name is Alessandro. This is Hype Talk TV. I'm here with Killer Kross. He is a wrestler, a professional wrestler from Impact Wrestling and AAA. So how are you doing, Killer Kross?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
So, Killer Kross, where are you from?
I was born and raised in New York, and I've lived all over the world. I'm currently living out of Las Vegas right now.
Las Vegas. And were you born in Las Vegas or?
No, I was born in New York.
New York. Nice. And when did you become a wrestler?
Approximately 4 years ago.
4 years ago, so like 2014, correct?
That's correct.
And how did you come up with the name Killer Kross as your wrestling name?
I didn't. I was working under the name Kevin Kross, and I was given the name Killer Kross from a variety of different demographics and different audience settings all over the United States. It was just something that the crowd kept calling me because from their assessment, I was beating people to half to death in the ring. So they just started to chant Killer Kross, and I didn't really think anything of it. But when it went on for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, I was like, okay, well, I'm a big advocate in giving people what they want. I'm out there for them. I'm not out there for myself. I always look at it as 90% them, 10% me. And I just decided to roll with it. They were giving me something. They clearly were very emotionally attached to it. So I got that from the crowd.
Nice. And does your wrestling personality, like, is it the same as you, like, as a person, or is it separate? Like, you're not really a violent person or anything, or are you?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to promote or advocate senseless violence, but I've been involved with combat sports since I was a little kid. It's been a tradition of my family to know how to fight. We were all involved with submission wrestling sports, whether it was, this isn't, directly categorized as submission sports, but the submissions do happen from time to time. Greco-Roman freestyle wrestling, catch wrestling, Volk, Sambo, jiu-jitsu, judo. I mean, I grew up in a family where that's just been practiced for 3 or 4 different generations. And then boxing as well. And then I ventured off on my own. I was wanting to learn how to kick. I grew up in that era where Jean-Claude Van Damme was taking over the action movies. So, when I was a little boy, all I wanted to do was kick like Van Damme. So I wound up pursuing Kyokushinkai, Shotokan, Hapkido, which
Awesome.
to Valley Tudo Muay Thai, which Chute Box, Manly Silva, Shogun, and a bunch of other guys from Pride FC.
And did you ever pursue it as a career, or?
I fought. It's out now. I wasn't talking about it for years. I just didn't feel that it was necessary. But I fought on the bare knuckle circuits for quite some time. I won a title at welterweight. I used to cut down to 174 pounds, and then I won a title at open weight. And I believe for that competition, I won the title at 205 pounds. And I was fighting a lot of heavyweights. So I moved to Las Vegas to fight pro. But getting into the waters, seriously getting into pro camps and stuff like that, I just realized 7 days a week, I didn't love it that much to commit my entire life to it, because mixed martial arts, and I enjoy it and I love it, recreationally now. I'm never going to stop doing it per se, but to dedicate my life to it as a career, it's like heavily romanticized and glorified on television, and there's a lot of abuse that your body goes through. Not to say there's not a lot of abuse in professional wrestling, but it's the stuff that happens in the gym 7 days a week that takes time off your life and screws up your reflexes. Yeah, and I don't need that 15 minutes on TV that bad. Plus 30% goes to your corner. You're getting murdered by taxes, and sponsorships and endorsements are limited because things go through Reebok. So I always wanted to be a wrestler, so I just went into professional wrestling. I avoided pro wrestling as long as I could my entire life. I tried to do everything else I possibly could occupation-wise, and nothing was really as fulfilling as this here. So this has been my plan since day one. I was reluctant to pursue it for a variety of silly reasons.
Awesome. So talking about lifestyle, you have a carnivore diet, correct?
Yeah.
And what's the process of that?
It's primarily red meat and water. I'm not overly strict on it, depending on my activity levels and where I am in the world. I'm constantly traveling. I'm always 30,000 feet in the air all the time. So depending on my activity levels, depending on time zones, altitude, how much water I've had, I will implement some greens like vegetables, and sometimes if I feel like it's absolutely necessary for something I'm about to do, I may have a small carb like a yam. But yeah, that's pretty much it. My primary calorie intake is all meat and water, and that's about it. I don't have any processed sugar whatsoever.
That's crazy. And does it like help you out or what?
It's amazing. I thought the diet was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard, and I kept hearing about it for over a year. So I was like, well, so people all over the world are doing this, and then some information and some case studies that were from Yale and other universities that really well respected, who were studying anthropology. They were going into different cultures all over the world that have existed for thousands of years. And there are some places in the world, and people don't think about this, where due to the climate and their altitude, you can't grow vegetables and fruits. But they've
True.
had human beings living in those places, arguably, for like close to 1 million years. They found skeletons that are very old in certain places where the only things they would
Wow.
have to be able to eat are fish and livestock. So they started to study those bones, and they were able to, through like hair follicles and stuff like that, they could find out that their primary diet was just that. And they lived to be very old, and even still some places far up north in North America, they don't have access to fruits and vegetables. They're eating fats and proteins. So they did sort of a backwards engineered research program where they figured out that carbohydrates are not an essential calorie that you need. You do not need carbohydrates. They are not essential.
Hmm.
They have excellent functions in the body, but they can throw your insulin sensitivity out of whack. It could put you into a very negative state where your body is storing fat, and it screws up your pituitary gland in the way that it regulates your hormones. With
Uh-huh.
my diet, none of that happens. I'm stable all day. My energy is consistent and excellent. I don't crash. I have very little to zero inflammation in my body from training and working in the ring, which is the most important thing for me. My skin is better. I heal faster. And I've preserved all of my muscle. I thought that I was going to shrink and lose all this size because I wasn't eating carbohydrates from a lot of the mainstream diets that are promoted through bodybuilding magazines and these articles online. But like, I've never felt better. And I was anticipating some setbacks, and I was anticipating some maybe possible side effects, and I just rolled the dice on it, but I haven't had any of that. I feel great.
Yeah, that's very interesting. But every person's body is like different, so it just
That's
depends on
that's
who you are, I guess.
That's very true, but that is something that is heavily embellished when they say everybody's body's different. Everybody needs proteins and
Yeah,
amino acids. I mean, everybody. There's not a single
of
human being on
course.
the planet that doesn't need that type of stuff. There are mandatory calories that we need. However, I mean, I know what you're referring to. You're referring to people who have intolerances for certain types of food, so maybe this diet wouldn't be for them. But,
Exactly.
just to make it clear for anyone listening, I'm not one of
For
those
like
nuts.
educational purposes, I guess.
Yeah. Like I'm not a nutcase where my identity is associated with the things that I do. Like I'm not promoting the carnivore diet. I'm not promoting any diet. As you're saying,
Yeah.
and in the light of philosophy that you're kind of floating in right now, you got to do what's best for you. And for me, this is it, and I'm very happy with it. I couldn't be happier. This is a sustainable thing I could do forever.
Very interesting. And then what wrestlers inspired you?
Um, I mean, as a little kid between the age of 1 to 10, I'd have to break it down like that. I'd probably say Ultimate Warrior, Bret Hart, uh, Brian
Mm-hmm.
Pillman, the Rockers, Power and Glory, Paul Roma and Hercules, um, Jake the Snake Roberts, Roddy Piper, uh, Diesel was one of my favorites when I was a kid. Psycho Sid. I could go on and on, man. I never really
Yeah.
had one favorite person. I've really always just thoroughly enjoyed pro wrestling. I don't know, between the age of 10 to now, I got really heavily into Japanese wrestling. Kawada was one of my favorites. Kenta Kobashi, Kenta,
Mm-hmm.
who I was, I think,
The
Hido.
old Tommy.
Yeah. I mean, just a ton of people. UWFI was a massive inspiration for me. A lot of people don't know what that is, but it was pro wrestling and mixed martial arts, and it surfaced in the 90s out of Japan. Gary
Yeah.
Albright, Dr. Death, Kakihara was absolutely amazing. He was such a savage. Sakuraba debuted there, I think, as well. So my influences are very wide and in spectrum. Sean O'Hare is another guy I can't leave out. He was one of my favorites.
Cool. And you know what you kind of remind me of? The way your personality and your ring and all that. in wrestling. You kind of remind me of Randy Orton a little bit.
Thank you.
A little bit.
I've always taken that as a high compliment. I think anytime you're ever going to be compared to a self-made millionaire who didn't come from much is always a very high compliment. I've gotten comparisons to him, The Rock, and a bunch of other people. I've gotten some odd ones, not necessarily in the way that I look like them, but I've gotten comparisons to Roddy Piper,
Yeah.
Jake Roberts, and anytime anyone ever compares me to people that I grew up looking up to in the business, I'm always very flattered. So thank you.
Yeah, because Randy Orton is like, he has that ferocious, like, killer type of personality that kind of matches with you, so it's kind of like very, like, alike, but yeah. And I could see why other people call you those other comparisons. And so, talking about your wrestling career, when did you start doing Lucha Underground? Because I saw the episode the other day and you were on it as like a. Tell me about that.
I've been with the company since season 2, so roughly doing the math in my head, maybe 2.5 years. And they were waiting for the right time to launch my character on television. So they made me an excellent offer and have been so awesome with me and have really treated me like a king. It's been an excellent experience being involved with the company.
Yeah.
The only frustrating thing, and it's just a frustration on my part, is I had to wait so long to get on TV. But that's I got to tell you, man, that's a great testament to how that company operates, because they take their time with each and every single talent
Character
that they have.
and talent.
Yeah, they want everyone to be over. They don't want to create sleeper matches for people. They want people to enjoy each and every single
Isn't
match.
it an hour? It's an hour. Yeah, it's an hour. Yeah.
1 hour program, and it's balls to the wall, and everyone's working really hard match to match, and it's a really super positive environment there. I can't say enough good things about Lucha. So they launched my character for season 4. They finally revealed that I am the god of the Rabbit Tribe. And it's been a very cool twist in how they have gotten here, because the Rabbit Tribe has always been associated with sexuality and comedy. And those those elements are still very present. However, we are now taking people down the rabbit hole, all pun intended. And there is a horror and a very hyper-violent supernatural element that we are introducing into the Rabbit Tribe. So it's a massive extension. And now we're down 2 members. Paul London has sacrificed Mala Suerte, and everyone is being killed. So Saltador, he's gone. But who's to say the show is based in fiction? So in more than most cases, this isn't going to be the last time. Perhaps you'll see them. They may come back as something else, something different, something more horrifying. But my character is rooted in supernatural elements, and that story will unfold as we start getting deeper into the season. And I'm very excited for people to see what I did, because it's only going to get more disturbing.
It's going to be very interesting and must-see, to be honest.
Sure.
And so, talking about Lucha Underground, you worked with another Mexican wrestling company, correct? It's called AAA.
Yep, AAA is...
So tell me about how did that become, and how's it going, and just the history, basically.
I was getting a lot of offers from other major companies, and I didn't want to give up the positions that I had before I had gotten onto television. So some people in Lucha Underground office thought it would be an excellent play to bring me down to AAA Lucha Libre Worldwide. Initially, I worked with Johnny Mundo, who's a very good friend of mine in real life, and
he's awesome.
Ty as well, very close friend. So we went down there and we just terrorized everybody. I've been undefeated in AAA Lucha Libre Worldwide for almost 2 years. I haven't been
everywhere, basically.
Pretty much. And it's been an amazing experience. We're working in front of anywhere from like 10,000 to 45,000 people sometimes. And being a part of the mecca of Lucha Libre, guys, Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio and Conan and all of these guys, Art Barr, never forget, all of these guys that came out of there, Alberto, his dad. It's just it's a great honor to be there and partake in creating history in that place. I think it's very cool, and
it's very cool and interesting.
Yeah, I had no idea that my career would have taken me there, but I'm pleasantly surprised that it did, and that's kind of the summary of that chapter.
So talking about Mexican promotions, how is it like to wrestle in a Mexican promotion, and the differences between the Mexican promotions and American promotions. Because I feel like Mexican promotions, the fans care so much about the people in the ring and all this other stuff, and they make more noise. Like, what's your take about it?
It's completely different. This is a totally different animal. Lucha Libre in Mexico versus professional wrestling anywhere else in the world. It's, in my opinion, I would say it's incomparable because the energy there is different. Lucha Libre is a cultural pastime for Mexico.
Yeah.
Lucha Libre is what baseball is to America and football. It's, this is their television show. From the last time I saw the statistics, I believe every Saturday morning, like they have a very steady 17 million people in viewership, and that's just in Mexico. We're not even counting the other Latin American countries all over the world that are speaking Spanish that have access to this in their television distribution. So they're the WWE of Mexico, and it's all different. The timing is different. The way you engage and interact with the crowd is different. The move set and styles are different. Everything is different.
Because I remember I was watching the Triple Mania, the match of Jeff Jarrett versus these other three dudes, Rey Phoenix, Switch Swan, and I think ACH. And one of the fans threw water at Jeff Jarrett, and I was like, what? Like, that was crazy. They get so serious about it.
I've had rocks thrown at me. I've had beer bottles thrown at me. I've had random garbage thrown at me. I've had piss thrown at me. They must have peed in a cup or peed in a Ziploc bag and threw it at me. Like if you piss those people off, they're going to let you know in a variety of different ways.
Yeah, that means you're doing a good job, basically.
Sure. I mean, the only place in the world where you would ever pat yourself in the back for having piss thrown at you would be Mexico. So I don't know who's crazy, the people in the crowd or us, for subjecting ourselves to that. We're all pretty retarded.
So talk about correlating things. Impact Wrestling has been in Mexico. How's your time in Impact Wrestling?
Oh, it's so much better than I anticipated. I was expecting a very positive experience, especially because Don Callis was so familiar with my work and my presentation. And
yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah, one of the biggest concerns that I personally have getting involved with any company is making sure that the people involved within management understand what and who Killer Kross is. Because, I'm not putting myself over or tooting my own horn. I'm just saying the presentation of this character is very different than anything else that's going on. It's using very selective verbiage in the way that he chooses to communicate. Setting is very, very critical in where he is. There has to be a continuity between the things he says and the things he does. It can't just be throwaway, bullcrap wrestling. There has to, I've always been a very, very big advocate in my philosophy of approaching pro wrestling that whatever you're going to sell people on, you need to deliver on. You can't just call somebody killer and not have them basically beat people half to death. Like I said earlier in this, I fell into that name. It wasn't something I constructed. So based on based on a consistency of my ring where people were like, oh, he's going to kill the guy. I was walking out there and people were chanting, Kross is going to kill you before my music even hit. So, I owe it to the fans. They cultivated this character. They really did. I had, I would say I had 60% to do with the general presentation, but the rest of my material that I get, 40% of it's from the crowd because they just say things that stick to me. And I'm a people pleaser. That's why I'm in this. Even when I'm working heel, I find ways to put respectful nods in without, while remaining in my lane as a professional to people and the things that they're giving me.
Yeah, of course you have to
acknowledge that. Yeah.
So talking about that, Impact Wrestling, have they paid you and everything? There's no problems, no issues the media has been saying that this person left because of so and so, and then the typical Impact Wrestling down the drain speech that every media source has been talking about.
Yeah.
Is that true, or is it?
I've had zero problems. And I've been, to be perfectly frank with you, I've been taken care of far beyond they were even contractually obligated to take care of me. They've gone out of their way to do things for me that they weren't even contractually obligated to do. So I've had nothing but a positive experience. And I oftentimes wonder if a lot of the material and the articles that come out about companies in general, not just Impact, are just like slander and propaganda, because I can tell you right
That's
now.
money grabbers, I think that's why.
Well, I don't know. Like I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm just saying it's pseudo journalists who actually have nothing to write about. And they know that the wrestling community is so gullible that it's a shocking headline in capital letters. Let me click on that. It's clickbait. So this guy can justify giving his job to his boss so he can get paid. Like, that happens all the time. I'm not saying it's not true, but I'm just saying I'm in the business and I've never.
It's the reality.
Well, I know all of these people, and I've never heard of any of that. Like, we all have dinner together at the hotel. Like, that's never come up. And I see these articles, and, I grew up in New York. I mind my own business. It's the culture I'm from. So I don't ask people about this, but I'm sure it would come up in conversation at least once in passing. So I think that a lot of the problems of the company are heavily embellished, in my opinion.
Yeah, to be honest. And, I remember I started watching Impact Wrestling again once, who came back? Oh, not them. Penta and Phoenix came, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be interesting because I'm a big fan of Pentagon and Phoenix. And and then I started watching it, and then Slammiversary was super good. And then ever since, like, I've been watching kind of like everything, and been up to date with it. So talking about Mexican promotions and stuff, do you know Spanish too, or?
I speak a little bit of Spanish, but to be honest with you, if you're really serious about your profession, you'll speak the language in the ring. So I have zero problem being able to communicate and coordinate. I understand more Spanish than I speak, but I just don't have people to speak Spanish with regularly to become really efficient at it. So
you can't slur your R's or anything?
I can roll my R's. I can speak a variety of different languages. I just don't tell anybody.
Oh, awesome. Because I know a lot of Spanish and stuff because I grew in a Spanish household. So that's why basically I watch a lot of wrestling that's Mexican as well, because I understand what they're saying. And it's like very like in tune,
Sure. My one side of my family is Greek, Italian, Central American, and I also grew up in a Spanish-speaking household. So it's just,
it's natural.
Yeah, I get it. I hear it. They weren't totally intense about making us all bilingual. They just didn't see the point in it at the time. But we understand more than we speak.
Yeah, that's what I like about Mexican promotions, that they're more like easy with people that don't speak Spanish. Not like kind of like some American promotions. They're kind of hard because Americans are like, I don't know how to explain it, but Americans are just more like strict, I guess. But who knows?
I wouldn't say that's true. I would say that the problem is that the guys. I would say that respectfully, there's a lot of luchadors in Mexico that can't keep up with the American wrestling style. It has nothing to do with the language barrier. Their conditioning is not as good as ours, and the stuff that they do doesn't translate to American audiences. That's why there's so few guys that come out of Mexico. When you think about how vast the luchador roster is, it's very difficult to break out, and it's very difficult to keep up. And again, it's a difference in styles. It's a total difference in styles because Lucha Libre,
it's another ball game.
Yes, totally. So they're having to learn professional wrestling from scratch when they have to come here, if they weren't taught that in Mexico. But then you'll see guys, Alberto, you'll see
Rey Mysterio.
Yeah, obviously Eddie and Conan and all those guys. Everyone from WCW, they translated perfectly fine. It was zero problems whatsoever. Tejano is another guy who can wrestle any style, any place, anytime, anywhere. He's amazing. Anyone from the Lucha Underground roster that's right out of Mexico, all those guys can hang with everybody. Drago,
Pentagon, all those other people,
Daga's another guy who never gets mentioned. He's one of the best professional wrestlers in the world, in my opinion. He reminds me of like a Lucha version of Dynamite Kid.
Oh, like X-Pac.
Daga. Reminds me of
my bad.
Version. Yeah, Dynamite Kid.
So, what's up with your future? So, what do you have panned out, and what's your goals?
I mean, my goals are pretty simple. Like, I would like to become a household name in the business, and I would like to, contribute moments for people who are watching professional wrestling that they can remember for the rest of their lives. I just brought this up recently. I remember a match. It was the Rockers versus Power and Glory. And it's such an obscure match. It wasn't a big money match, but I remember seeing that match when I was like 5 or 6 or 7 years old. And that match terrified me. I had it on VHS and I probably watched that match over 500 times. And the Power and Glory beat the living life out of the Rockers. And, I just like that. I carried that match with me. And then almost everything I watched in ECW, I've carried with me.
Yeah.
I'd like to create those moments, those entertaining moments for people, um, like those guys had contributed to my life. And
Exactly. That's how it should be done.
yeah, and in terms of where I'm going to do that, I'm really not that hung up on it. I'm very confident in my ability to make a connection with people. I've
Hmm.
always been able to connect with people even prior to the business. I would consider myself an introvert, not in the sense that I don't like dealing with people. It's just I only have so much energy for people. And when I'm out there, I give them more than I have. So when I'm done with it, I like to shut down and just kind of hide. But,
Yeah.
yeah, everyone's asking me about WWE and Ring of Honor and New Japan and all these other places. If the offers and the timing make sense, I would be more than happy to work in all of those organizations. I think
Yeah.
all of those I'm open to work with all those companies. And, as for Impact and Lucha Underground, I'm very happy there. And I'm really looking forward to growing with those companies.
Yeah, because WWE now is like not a good time because a lot of talent is coming in, so it's like oversaturated right now, to be honest. So I think the best thing for you is just to make a household name in Impact Wrestling, which I think would happen because you have the it factor, so that'll be dope. So why should people care about Killer Kross?
People should care about Killer Kross if Killer Kross offers them the cup of tea they want to drink. And I like to think that I'm able to do that because I transcend some of the general pro wrestling parameters that people kind of perpetuate in their activities and their contributions to the business. So what I'm specifically speaking about is I feel like this character presentation can transcend regular pro wrestling parameters. He's not just a guy in a pair of trunks and he goes in there and does a couple arm drags and
Yeah.
hits a spot at the end and that's it. This character is rooted in a lot of different types of settings. And I think that it's very, very easy if you love this business to maintain the pro wrestling fan to keep tuning in. But it's a whole nother animal and it takes a very specific type of person to draw in new viewership, to draw in people who don't watch pro wrestling, to show them something for a few seconds where they go,
That
this is kind
usually
of interesting.
takes like mainstream people to do that, but
Sure,
some people could do it, like CM Punk did it.
sure, but here's the thing. You're saying it takes mainstream people. Well, what is it about mainstream people that will, accumulate that crowd? It's the ability to appeal to mainstream. You don't have to be in the mainstream. As long as you understand how to project something to the mainstream, then you've got them. And I've turned a lot of people in the last 4 years who do not watch wrestling and thought it was the most ridiculous thing they've ever seen into wrestling fans. So I know I've got an knack for it, and I know exactly how I'm doing it, and I'm looking forward to continuing to do it. And speaking of mainstream, I'm actually working on a variety of different types of other streams of income that are in the entertainment industry and what we would call, I guess, mainstream. So you could probably television shows and movies. So I think that will probably help out any company and the business that once people start seeing that type of stuff, it'll draw them in.
Yeah, correct. That's super interesting. So yeah, that's about it, Killer Kross.